Lisa Montgomery. Lisa Montgomery was born on February 27, 1968, in Melbourne, Kansas. Growing up, she was subjected to relentless physical and emotional abuse. Her mother trafficked her, allowing men to gang up and have intimate moments with her in exchange for money, leading to profound psychological trauma and mental illness. This abuse resulted in diagnosed brain damage and complex post-traumatic stress disorder. In December 2004, Montgomery, then 36, contacted Bobby Jo Stinnett, a 23-year-old pregnant woman from Skidmore, Missouri, under the pretense of purchasing a puppy. Upon visiting Stinnett's home on December 16, Montgomery attacked and choked her until she lost consciousness. Using a kitchen knife, she then cut into Stinnett's abdomen to take the child. A struggle ensued when Stinnett regained consciousness, leading Montgomery to choke her to death. She abducted the newborn, attempting to pass the baby off as her own. Montgomery was apprehended the day after the murder. She confessed to the crime, and in 2007, she was convicted and sentenced to death. After a series of legal battles, on January 13, 2021, Lisa Montgomery was executed by lethal injection at the Federal Correctional Complex in Terre Haute, Indiana. She was the first female inmate in over 6 decades that the federal government executed. She was on death row for over 14 years. Number 2. Kelly Gissendaner. Born on March 8, 1968, in Lawrenceville, Georgia, as Kelly Renee Brookshire, she endured abuse during her childhood and adolescence, leading to profound psychological trauma. At 19, she married Jeff Banks, but the union was short-lived. She later married Douglas Gissendaner in 1989, divorced in 1993, and remarried him in 1995. Together, they had a daughter, and Douglas became the stepfather to Kelly's 2 sons from previous relationships. In late 1996, Kelly began an affair with Gregory Owen. Desiring to eliminate her husband, she conspired with Owen to murder Douglas. On February 7, 1997, Owen ambushed Douglas, forcing him into his own vehicle at knife point. He then drove Douglas to a secluded area in Gwinnett County, Georgia, where he struck him with a nightstick and used the knife on him multiple times, resulting in Douglas's death. Kelly arrived shortly after, and together they set fire to Douglas's car and concealed his body. Both Kelly and Owen were arrested and charged with murder. Prosecutors offered plea deals to both, life imprisonment with the possibility of parole after 25 years. Owen accepted the deal, pleading guilty and agreeing to testify against Kelly. Kelly, however, rejected the plea offer. In 1998, she was convicted of malice murder and sentenced to death. Kelly spent approximately 17 years on death row. During this period, she underwent a profound personal transformation. She embraced Christianity, pursued theological studies, and earned a degree. She became a source of support and inspiration for fellow inmates, counseling many through personal crises. In the days leading up to her execution, there were numerous appeals for clemency. Pope Francis, through his representative, urged the Georgia Board of Pardons and Paroles to commute her sentence to life imprisonment. Despite these efforts, the board denied clemency. On September 30, 2015, Kelly Gissendaner was executed by lethal injection at the Georgia Diagnostic and Classification Prison in Jackson, Georgia. Number 3. Lisa Coleman. In the early 2000s, Coleman entered into a relationship with Marcella Williams, and the 2 women lived together in Arlington, Texas. Marcella had a son, Devontae Marcel Williams, from a previous relationship. On July 26, 2004, emergency services were called to the apartment shared by Coleman and Williams, where they found 9-year-old Devontae unresponsive. He was pronounced dead at the scene. An autopsy revealed that Devontae weighed only 35 pounds at the time of his death, a weight more typical of a toddler than a 9-year-old child. The medical examination uncovered evidence of prolonged malnutrition and physical abuse, including scars, injuries, and signs of restraint. Both Coleman and Williams were arrested and charged with capital murder in connection with Devontae's death. Prosecutors argued that the two women had systematically starved and abused the child, leading to his death. Marcella Williams accepted a plea deal, pleading guilty to a lesser charge in exchange for a life sentence with the possibility of parole after 30 years. Lisa Coleman, however, chose to go to trial. In 2006, she was convicted of capital murder and subsequently sentenced to death. Coleman spent approximately 8 years on death row. During this time, her legal team filed multiple appeals. Despite these efforts, the appeals were unsuccessful. On September 17, 2014, Lisa Ann Coleman was executed by lethal injection at the Texas State Penitentiary in Huntsville. She was 38 years old at the time of her execution. Number 4. Suzanne Basso. Born on May 15, 1954, in Schenectady, New York, Suzanne Burns was one of 8 children in her family. In the early 1970s, she married James Peake, with whom she had 2 children. The family later relocated to Houston, Texas, where they adopted the surname O'Malley and claimed an Irish-American identity. During this period, Suzanne worked various jobs, including as a security guard and seamstress. In 1997, Suzanne met Louis Charles Buddy Musso, a 59-year-old intellectually disabled man, at a church bazaar in New Jersey. They began a long-distance relationship, and in June 1998, Musso moved to the Houston area to live with Suzanne. Unknowing to Musso, Suzanne's intentions were far from genuine. Shortly after Musso's arrival, Suzanne, along with her son James and accomplices Bernice Aarons Miller, her children Craig and Hope Aarons, and Hope's fiancé Terrence Singleton, subjected Musso to severe abuse. They forced him to perform household chores and inflicted physical harm, including beatings and burns. On August 25, 1998, the group escalated their abuse, torturing Musso with belts, baseball bats, and other objects. They then bathed him in a solution of kitchen cleaner and bleach before leaving his body in Galena Park, Texas. A jogger discovered Musso's body, and an autopsy revealed that he died from multiple blunt force injuries. In 1999, Suzanne Basso was convicted of capital murder in Harris County, Texas. Despite the involvement of multiple accomplices, Basso was the only one sentenced to death. After spending over a decade on death row, Suzanne Basso was executed by lethal injection on February 5, 2014, at the Huntsville unit in Texas. She was 59 years old at the time of her death. Number 5. Kimberly McCarthy. McCarthy worked as an occupational therapist and home health aide. She struggled with addiction, which led to various legal issues, including convictions for forgery, prostitution, and theft of services. On July 21, 1997, McCarthy visited her 71-year-old neighbor, Dorothy Booth, under the pretense of borrowing sugar. Once inside Booth's home in Lancaster, Texas, McCarthy attacked her, used a knife on her multiple times, beating her with a candelabrum and severing her finger to steal her diamond wedding ring. She then stole Booth's purse and Mercedes-Benz, pawning the ring to purchase crack. McCarthy was arrested after evidence linked her to the crime. In 1998, she was convicted of capital murder and sentenced to death. After exhausting her appeals, McCarthy was executed by lethal injection on June 26, 2013, at the Huntsville unit in Texas. She spent about 15 years on death row. Number 6. Teresa Lewis. Teresa Lewis was born on April 26, 1969, in Danville, Virginia. She grew up in a low-income family where both parents worked in a textile mill. She sang in church during her youth but faced challenges early on, dropping out of school at 16 and entering a marriage that produced a daughter, Christy Lynn Bean. Following her divorce, Teresa struggled with substance abuse, including alcohol and painkillers, and held various low-paying jobs. In the spring of 2000, she began working at the Dan River Textile Mill, where she met Julian Clifton Lewis Jr., a recent widower with 3 children. Teresa and her daughter moved in with Julian in June 2000, and the couple married shortly thereafter. In August 2002, Teresa became aware of a $250,000 life insurance policy that her stepson, Charles J. Lewis, had obtained in preparation for his deployment to Iraq as part of the U.S. Army Reserve. Seeing an opportunity for financial gain, Teresa conspired with 2 men, Matthew Schallenberger and Rodney Fuller, to murder her husband Julian and her stepson Charles to collect the insurance money. On October 30, 2002, Schallenberger and Fuller entered the Lewis home and fatally shot Julian and Charles while they slept. Teresa had left the door unlocked to facilitate their entry and had provided them with funds to purchase the murder weapons. Teresa Lewis was arrested and charged with capital murder. She confessed to the police, pled guilty, and was sentenced to death on June 3, 2003. Despite appeals and clemency requests highlighting her mental capacity and the argument that she was manipulated by her co-conspirators, all efforts to overturn her death sentence were unsuccessful. Teresa Lewis spent approximately 7 years on death row at the Fluvanna Correctional Center for Women. During this time, she expressed profound remorse for her role in the murders. On September 23, 2010, at the age of 41, she was executed by lethal injection at the Greensville Correctional Center in Jarrett, Virginia. Number 7. Frances Newton. On April 7, 1987, Newton's husband, Adrian, her 7-year-old son, Alton, and her 21-month-old daughter, Farah, were found shot to death in their Houston apartment. All 3 victims were shot with a .25 caliber pistol belonging to a man Newton had been seeing at the time. Prosecutors argued that Newton murdered her family to collect $50,000 life insurance policies she had taken out on each of them about a month prior to their deaths, naming herself as the beneficiary. They also presented evidence that Newton placed a paper bag containing the murder weapon in a relative's home shortly after the murders. Newton maintained her innocence, claiming that a hard substance dealer murdered her family. In October 1988, Newton was convicted of capital murder and sentenced to death. Throughout her time on death row, Newton maintained her innocence. After spending nearly 17 years on death row, Newton was executed by lethal injection on September 14, 2005, at the age of 40. Her execution marked the first time an African-American woman was executed in Texas since the Civil War. Number 8. Aileen Wuornos. Aileen Carol Wuornos's life is a disturbing tale of abuse and survival. She was also known as one of America's most infamous serial killers. Born on February 29, 1956, in Rochester, Michigan. Her parents separated before her birth, and she never met her father, who was incarcerated for street intimate crimes. Abandoned by her mother at a young age, Wuornos and her brother were raised by their grandparents. Reports indicate that she suffered abuse from her grandfather and engaged in intimate activities in exchange for goods during her early teens. At 14, she became pregnant, and the child was placed for adoption. Following her grandmother's death and being expelled from her home, Wuornos turned to street and drifted across various states. Between 1989 and 1990, while working as a street worker along Florida highways, Wuornos murdered 7 men. She claimed that each murders were in self-defense, alleging that the men had either assaulted her or attempted to assault her. The victims were Richard Mallory, 51, an electronics store owner who she murdered in November 1989. David Spears, 43, a construction worker, murdered in May 1990. Charles Carskadden, 40, a part-time rodeo worker, murdered in May 1990. Peter Seams, 65, a retired merchant seaman, went missing in June 1990. His body was never found. Troy Barres, 50, a delivery driver, murdered in July 1990. Charles Humphreys, 56, a retired Air Force major and former police chief, murdered in September 1990. Walter Antonio, 62, a truck driver, murdered in November 1990. Wuornos was apprehended on January 9, 1991, after a series of investigations linked her to the murders. In 1992, Wuornos was convicted of the murder of Richard Mallory and sentenced to death. She later pleaded guilty to additional murders, receiving multiple death sentences. Throughout her trials and subsequent appeals, Wuornos maintained that her actions were in self-defense, though she also expressed a desire to expedite her execution, stating that she would murder people again if released. After spending over a decade on death row, Wuornos was executed by lethal injection on October 9, 2002, at Florida State Prison. Number 9. Lynda Lyon Block. Lynda was born on February 8, 1948, in Orlando, Florida. Her father died of heart failure when she was 10, and she reportedly had a strained relationship with her mother, whom she described as abusive. These early adversities may have influenced her later life choices and beliefs. Lynda married Carl Block, an 80-year-old military veteran, in 1983. The marriage ended in divorce in December 1991. She later entered into a relationship with George Sibley Jr., with whom she shared anti-government sentiments. Together, they published Liberates, a political magazine expressing their views. Their shared ideology led them to adopt a sovereign citizen stance, rejecting governmental authority and legal systems. On October 4, 1993, in Opelika, Alabama, Lynda and George were involved in a fatal encounter with police officer Roger Lamar Motley Jr. The incident occurred in a shopping mall parking lot when Officer Motley approached their vehicle to investigate a report about a child possibly in distress. A confrontation ensued, resulting in the shooting death of Officer Motley. Both Lynda and George were arrested and charged with capital murder. In December 1994, Lynda was convicted of capital murder and sentenced to death. Throughout the trial, she maintained her anti-government stance, often challenging the court's jurisdiction over her. Lynda spent approximately 7.5 years on death row at the Julia Tutwiler Prison for Women in Wetumpka, Alabama. On May 10, 2002, at the age of 54, Lynda was executed by electrocution at the Holman Correctional Facility in Atmore, Alabama. Number 10. Lois Nadean Smith. Lois was born on September 12, 1940, in Oklahoma. Her early life remains relatively undocumented. She later married and became known as Lois Nadean Smith. On July 4, 1982, in Gans, Oklahoma, Lois, then 41 years old, confronted 21-year-old Cindy Bailey, her son's ex-girlfriend. Believing that Bailey had threatened her son, Greg Smith, Lois and Greg picked up Bailey under the pretense of a meeting. During a heated confrontation, Smith accused Bailey of plotting to murder Greg. The situation escalated, resulting in Lois shooting Bailey multiple times and used the knife on her in the throat, leading to Bailey's death. She was arrested and charged with first-degree murder. In December 1982, she was convicted and sentenced to death. During her trial, she argued that she was under the influence of alcohol and hard substances at the time of the crime. Despite these arguments, Her conviction and death sentence were upheld. Lois spent approximately 19 years on death row at the Oklahoma State Penitentiary. During this period, she became known for her volatile temperament, which earned her the nickname Mean Nadean. On December 4, 2001, at the age of 61, Smith was executed by lethal injection at the Oklahoma State Penitentiary in McAlester, number 11. Marilyn Plantz. In 1988, Marilyn, then 27 years old, engaged in an extramarital affair with 18-year-old William Clifford Bryson. Together, they conspired to murder her husband, Jim Plantz, aiming to collect approximately $300,000 from his life insurance policy. On August 26, 1988, Bryson and his friend Clinton McKimball ambushed Jim as he returned home from his night shift at the Daily Oklahoman newspaper. They beat him with baseball bats and subsequently set his body and truck on fire to stage the incident as an accident. Marilyn Plantz was arrested and charged with first-degree murder. In March 1989, she was convicted and sentenced to death. Her lover, William Bryson, also received a death sentence and was executed in June 2000. Clinton McKimball, in exchange for his testimony against Plantz and Bryson, received a life sentence. Marilyn spent approximately 12 years on death row. On May 1, 2001, at the age of 40, Marilyn Plantz was executed by lethal injection at the Oklahoma State Penitentiary. Number 12. Betty Lou Beets. At 15, Betty Lou married her first husband, Robert Franklin Branson. This union marked the beginning of a series of conflicts in her relationships. Over the years, she married a total of 6 times, twice to the same man, Billy York Lane. In 1970, she shot Billy York Lane twice in the back. However, she was acquitted after Lane admitted to threatening her life. They remarried in 1972 but divorced again shortly thereafter. In 1978, she attempted to run over her third husband, Ronnie C. Threlcold, with her car. He survived and later testified against her. On August 6, 1983, Betty Lou reported her 5th husband, Jimmy Don Beets, missing, claiming he had disappeared from their home near Cedar Creek Lake in Henderson County, Texas. An extensive search was carried out with authorities searching the lake for his body. 2 years later, acting on a tip, police searched her property and discovered the remains of both Jimmy Don Beets and her 4th husband, Doyle Wayne Barker, buried on her land. Both had died from gunshot wounds. In 1985, Betty Lou was convicted of capital murder for the death of Jimmy Don Beets and sentenced to death. Betty Lou Beets spent approximately 15 years on death row at the Mountain View Unit in Texas. On February 24, 2000, at the age of 62, Betty Lou Beets was executed by lethal injection at the Huntsville Unit in Texas. Number 13. Judy Buenoano. Judy Buenoano was born on April 4, 1943, in Quanah, Texas. At 14, she was incarcerated for attacking her family members and subsequently chose to attend a reform school. After her graduation in 1960, she became a nursing assistant. In 1961, she gave birth to her son, Michael. In 1962, Judy met and married James Goodyear, a sergeant in the U.S. Air Force. After his return from Vietnam, James died on September 16, 1971, under mysterious circumstances. His death was initially attributed to natural causes, but it was later revealed that he had been poisoned with arsenic. Judy collected substantial life insurance benefits following his death. Judy then moved to Florida, where she met and lived with Bobby Joe Morris. In January 1978, Morris died suddenly, and his death was later determined to be caused by arsenic poisoning. She again benefited from life insurance payouts. In 1979, her son Michael became severely ill, exhibiting symptoms that led to paralysis. On May 13, 1980, she took Michael, who was wearing heavy braces due to his condition, canoeing. The canoe capsized, and Michael drowned. His death was initially considered an accident, but suspicions arose later. Judy received life insurance money following Michael's death. In 1983, she was involved with John Gentry, who survived a car explosion in Pensacola, Florida. Investigations revealed that Judy had been giving Gentry vitamin pills laced with arsenic. Further inquiries led to the exhumation of her previous partners and son, confirming arsenic poisoning in each case. Judy was arrested in 1984 and convicted for the murders of James Goodyear and Michael Buenoano, as well as the attempted murder of John Gentry. She was sentenced to death for James Goodyear's murder and received a life sentence for Michael's death. On March 30, 1998, at the age of 54, Judy Buenoano was executed in Florida's electric chair, becoming the first woman executed in the state since 1848. Number 14. Karla Faye Tucker. Born on November 18, 1959, in Houston, Texas, Karla was the youngest of 3 sisters. By age 8, Karla was smoking, and by 10, she discovered she was the product of an extramarital affair. In 1983, at 23, Karla and her boyfriend, Daniel Garrett, both under the influence of hard substance, broke into the Houston apartment of Jerry Lynn Dean, intending to steal motorcycle parts. During the burglary, they encountered Dean and Deborah Thornton. During the course of the encounter, under the influence of drugs, Karla and Garrett brutally murdered both individuals using a pickaxe. Karla was arrested about a month after the murders. In 1984, she was convicted of capital murder and sentenced to death. While on death row, Karla experienced a profound religious conversion, embracing Christianity. Despite international pleas for clemency, Karla Faye Tucker was executed by lethal injection on February 3, 1998, at the age of 38. She served 14 years on death row. Number 15. Velma Barfield. Born Margie Velma Bullard on October 29, 1932, in Eastover, North Carolina. Velma was the second of 9 children in a family residing on a small tobacco and cotton farm. Raised in a strict Pentecostal Christian household, she experienced a challenging upbringing. At 17, Velma left school to marry Thomas Burke, with whom she had 2 children. The family lived harmoniously in Parkton, North Carolina, for over 15 years. Following a hysterectomy and subsequent back pain, Velma developed an addiction to prescription drugs, leading to significant behavioral changes. Her marriage to Thomas Burke deteriorated, marked by frequent arguments. In 1969, after an argument, their house burned down, resulting in Thomas's death. In 1970, she married Jennings Barfield, who died less than a year later from heart complications. Suspicion did not initially surround these deaths. Between 1974 and 1978, Velma was involved in the deaths of several individuals. In 1978, she poisoned Stuart Taylor, fearing that he had discovered her financial forgeries. His death led to an autopsy revealing arsenic poisoning, prompting further investigations. She was arrested in 1978 after the autopsy revealed arsenic poisoning. She confessed to multiple murders, including those of her mother and patients under her care. In December 1978, she was convicted of first-degree murder for Stuart's death and sentenced to death. While on death row, Velma underwent a significant religious conversion, embracing Christianity and expressing remorse for her actions. She became known for her spiritual outreach to fellow inmates, earning the nickname Death Row Granny. Despite appeals for clemency, Velma Barfield was executed by lethal injection on November 2, 1984, at Central Prison in Raleigh, North Carolina. She was 52 years old at the time of her execution. Number 16. Elizabeth Duncan. Elizabeth shared an unusually close and possessive relationship with her son, Frank Duncan, a successful attorney. Her attachment to him was so profound that it strained his personal relationships, as she often interfered in his affairs, fearing abandonment. In 1958, Frank met Olga Kupchak, a 30-year-old nurse, during Elizabeth's hospitalization following a self-harm attempt. The two quickly fell in love and married on June 20, 1958. Olga soon became pregnant. Elizabeth vehemently opposed the union, perceiving Olga as a threat to her relationship with Frank. Determined to remove Olga from their lives, Elizabeth hired two men, Agustin Baldonado and Luis Moya, offering them $6,000 to murder her daughter-in-law. On November 17, 1958, the men kidnapped Olga from her Santa Barbara apartment, beat her, and buried her alive in a shallow grave near Carpinteria, California. Olga was 7 months pregnant at the time. Olga's disappearance prompted an investigation that led authorities to Elizabeth. Evidence revealed that Elizabeth had previously attempted to annul Frank and Olga's marriage by hiring a man to impersonate her son in court proceedings. Further inquiries uncovered the murder-for-hire plot, leading to the arrest of Elizabeth, Baldonado, and Moya. The trial began on February 24, 1959. Despite Elizabeth's attempts to portray herself as a victim of blackmail, the jury found her guilty of first-degree murder after deliberating for less than 5 hours. She was sentenced to death. On August 8, 1962, Elizabeth Ann Duncan was executed in the gas chamber at San Quentin State Prison, marking the last execution of a woman in California to date.
Thank you for watching. Check out these other interesting clips from the channel, and be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to be notified about our latest videos.